Hello, Flutterby's. It's Butterfly. How are you? I'm so glad that you came back to see what we have in store for today. So, I am continuing on with my pursuit of the tarot and presenting some meanings for the cards. And of course, you can always take what you like, take what works with what you know, and leave the rest. So, these are some of the meanings that I've learned and how I interpret the images on the cards. So today we're looking at the Eight of Swords, and I'm going to also give you some comparisons to other decks that I have. Right here what you see is a person who is tied and bound. She looks like she's really in a bind. She's in a situation. That's really being in a bind, to take it literally. She seems to be, no, she's not barefoot. She seems to have some kind of shoes that are the same color of the ground around her. But she has swords around her, and those swords are basically surrounding her, blocking her way out. So what this is showing you is some imagery of situations that we can relate to in everyday life. This is where you are blindfolded. You are not seeing the situation that is in front of you very clearly. That you are feeling surrounded by issues. Swords are normally something that has to do with intellect, something that has to do with concepts or the mind or clarity of thought. So these concepts, whatever it is, are surrounding you. They're not necessarily a threat. There's no immediate threat to her other than she feels bound. Now, generally speaking, when I look at cards that show the Eight of Swords, there's a binding that's happening, but somehow you can get yourself out of that bind. There's no one here actually threatening her. There's no one here who's actually saying, stay in that one spot. In fact, if she takes a step forward, her legs are not bound. If she takes a step forward, she can walk around the swords and find her way out to the city behind where she could find resources. Those ties that bind her behind her may actually be very loosely bound, and so she could find her way out to untie them, or indeed sort of slide them on a sword and use a sword to cut herself away, perhaps, and then remove her mask. So there are ways that the card offers, just by the imagery, that she's in no immediate danger. She's just feeling really trapped, and this indeed is a feeling trapped and blinded. Okay, and the ground that she's walking on is also kind of unpleasant. It's not dry ground. There's water, so there's some resources there, but at the same time, it's not very pleasant to kind of walk through mud, but she's stepping aside. So there it tells you that the situation's uncomfortable and she's not seeing everything clearly. So we can all kind of relate to that. There's a sense of confusion there. There's a sense of victimhood. There's a sense of feeling like everything is standing up around you. You feel surrounded and just unable to get out. You feel bound by whatever that situation is. It can be like duty. It can be work-related issues. But for whatever reasons, she's feeling pretty powerless. I'm going to show you some other cards here that I have. Here, this one comes from a little deck that I like. Here, I don't know if this is the back of the box or the front. There we go. And I guess this is the front because it has the name, the Whimsical Tarot. And this one doesn't really come with a book or even a booklet. So this one here shows you fairy tales and tales of old. Basically the lessons in life that we learn as children, that children have been learning for eons, maybe not eons, but we tend to change the tales as we go to suit how our society now wants to teach children. So that's why you see the concepts changing, little subtle sort of things. You know, the women aren't so hopeless and waiting for the man to come in and save them. Quite often now, the woman has to be the hero of the story and doesn't need the man, you know, but they're still very heterosexual. Hey, by the way, Disney, for people who are not necessarily heterosexual, you might want to find something other than, you know, heterosexual storylines. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I'm heterosexual, but I think it would be nice to see some diversity, or maybe even just not looking for love or having a love theme. I mean, we're the kid stories, and there's other things that are interesting. Okay, there's a lovely aside. So the Eight of Swords. Don't get me started on fairy tales. But anyways, these are fairy tales. So here we have, I don't even know what story this is. Perhaps if you know, you can leave in the comments down below. But here is what seems to be a hunter. He's partially lost a boot. And he has on his hat here a gunshot. And he has his own gun that he's not handling very well because he's on the ground. Now, I don't know if he's dead. He looks relatively unwell. But his companion, the dog, is coming to sniff him out. Maybe the dog is the one who's sniffing and pulling off his boot. But he has help. That's the message, is that he has help. He has somebody coming to do his best to rescue the person. There is a way out. So perhaps the dog will go and get some help. Now, this man is not necessarily surrounded by swords, other than obviously the swords that are in the border, but they're not actually in the picture itself. But you see how there's the theme of victimhood and feeling defeated, and feeling as though there are no resources. Now, I don't know exactly what state he's in. It looks like he's not resting. But he possibly is resting. It looks like, you know, he's gone through something that has really, it's the hole in the head here, the hole in the hat that really kind of looks pretty hopeless for this guy. So I guess if this picture, if this card, if this illustrator wanted to show that there was hope that he could just kind of get up and walk away, perhaps the hole in the hat might have been better placed somewhere else. But generally speaking, at least he's got the dog to come along. So there are some differences between the interpretations. Fairy tale cards, that is. Fairy tale cards. Ha ha. Okay. Everyday Witch. We're going to look at Everyday Witch, and then I'm going to look at two other decks after that. The Nine of Swords in the Everyday Witch. Let me take a look at here. Oops, no, not Nine of Swords. Eight of Swords. I put it on the page here. So, basically, this is really in keeping with what we know. Here, this is the Eight of Swords. I just love this deck so much. I mean, look at the back. You know? Hello. Like, I just love the traditional sort of, yeah, those images. So here, she is definitely surrounded. Now, I've read a little bit about the blurb, and it's definitely in keeping with what we know. Here she adds that her companion, the cat, is already trying to find a way out for her. He's doing his best with what he knows to help. Now, she is bound, but she's loosely bound. She, again, she's upright. She's in an upright position, although she is blindfolded. She may be able to sort of feel around and carefully sort of cut those bindings off on the sword. She, again, doesn't have anybody around surrounding her. This is a self-imposed perception of her own that she is surrounded. This is something that is happening in her own world, within her own mind. And of course, there's a bird there. When you see a bird, it usually means some kind of a hope, perhaps a messenger, but at least a little bit of inspiration. Okay, so that's basically in keeping. And also in keeping with the meaning kind of that I look at with these cards, the Eight of Swords is looking at things from a different perspective. Trying something that is different. So not always just looking at the same pattern behavior, pattern sort of concepts that you go for. This, see, Unknown Tarot, Wild Unknown. Everybody has a wild unknown. And of course, we see the chrysalis. So this has a little bit of a spin on it because it has kind of like a cocooning. So the main character, the butterfly, is surrounded by swords, hanging off of one sword. So the swords are surrounding, but basically what it is a time to wrap yourself with, to kind of cocoon within for transformation. This is definitely a card of transformation, where you will then emerge and look, the chrysalis is almost able to emerge because the wings are fully formed, and it looks as though he's ready to sort of stretch out the wings because it's not covered with a cocoon. So this is a very hopeful time right here. I see this as trying to emerge. Now the other thing is that there was a sense of urgency that I read when I saw this little blurb on here. It's your perceptions are keeping you from opening your wings and taking flight. What keeps you suspended here, yourself or others? The Eight of Swords demands an answer. You cannot hang here much longer. So there's a timing component here with this card that is not really evident unless you're a reader and you go into, remembering what the author has to say about this. So I guess it kind of is worth saying that you can't stay there forever. You need to have some kind of an answer, some kind of a problem solving to get yourself out of this situation. So that is that, and that. And one last one. This one is really special, so I really want to share this with you. This is called The Spirit of Herbs. This is I had bought two, and I gave one as an offering for well, you met her on my channel for Winnie, actually. I gave her that at one time when she was teaching me to make the 3 drums that I have. And of course, I paid her the full price, but I also wanted to give her an offering on top of that for all the teachings and all the things that she does. So I gave her the book and the deck itself. This one is in particular, really, there you have the author and so on. I'm really keen on it. When I ordered it off of Amazon, I had to order the deck and the book separately. You have to be very, very careful about what it is that you're reading and what you're getting, because the deck itself comes with a booklet, and depending, where's my booklet? Depending on what you're talking about, or does it come with a book? Yeah, it does. So it does come with this little, like a leaflet with, you can see that? I have my light kind of giving me good lighting for me, but not so much for the cards. So it's really pretty thin. Okay. So the blurbs are like that. So you really want to read what you get, but it is so worth. I just love this deck. So just to kind of give you an idea, this one's the 6 of Swords, and each card comes with a different herb. This one's the 7 of Swords, and there's the back. So anyways, let's look at the 8 of Swords, which is here. So it is in keeping with the Rider-Waite sort of imagery, where the boy, the young man, is surrounded by swords. He is sort of locked in, blindfolded and bound, true to the image that we are all familiar with. And in this deck, you always have an overgrown sort of, it's not to size, but the herb, the prominent herb, is always really, it's very prominent. The feature herb is always very prominent in the picture. Okay, so there's your 8 of Swords. And I want to kind of give you, it basically does go through the same sort of analysis, the storytelling. So it describes a bound and blindfolded man that sits amongst the swords. He's frustrated, and he's created his own mental concepts that bind him. And so what it is advising is the calmness and the inner quietude to come to the forefront so that you can rethink your direction. So that is basically what it's talking about. But then it also gives you, this book here also gives you extra. So the previous page was the description for the meaning of the card, and it also gives you the herb, the kind of the formal name for the herb, and then Jupiter in Gemini. I don't do astrology, so it kind of gives you that astrological interpretation. But also, it gives you quite a bit more. So I'm just going to show you this for this one card. Spiritual properties, Black Cohosh will help you relieve the cramped feeling one may have when it is in the midst of an Eight of Swords situation. There is a need to relax, be calm, and stay present without fighting circumstances. And then it goes on. The medicinal properties it talks about also of the Black Cohosh. Medicinally, Black Cohosh is a useful antispasmodic for all nervous conditions, cramps, and pains. Native Americans use Black Cohosh to relieve pains associated with childbirth and menstrual cramps, eruptive diseases such as measles and rheumatism. So it goes on a little bit. And then the dose and the preparation, it talks to you about the dosages, which I'm not going to be giving on my channel. And then Black Cohosh is indicated during pregnancy, and that is in bold, so that you need to know that. Keywords: need to be calm and quiet, relooking at an issue, feeling trapped and bound, releasing spasms and anxieties, releasing self-imposed limitations. So again, in keeping with the meaning that we're familiar with. The affirmation that you may want to tell yourself is, by releasing myself on the thoughts that bind me, I am open to the new concepts coming my way. So again, these are the thoughts that bind you, and you are holding yourself back. Open up the blinds and find a way to step away from the situation and resolve the issue within yourself. You have the power. You have the power. The answer was always with you the whole way. Just click your heel 3 times and go back home. So the herbal allies, Blue Cohosh and Black Haw are the herbal allies. For those reasons, some people are really interested in herbs. I quite like working with herbs. I was a lot more into it when I was in my 20s. I had herbs all over my apartments, and I was just quite into it and taking tinctures, making all kinds of funny concoctions. But as the years went by, now I sort of resolved to use the ones that work, the sure kind of staples that I have, and I'm not as experimental as I used to be, but I still really like working with plants very, very much. I love gardening, and it's definitely something that deserves a place, I think, with tarot. So I did want to show that with you. Hope you have a great day, and just leave your comments down below if you have any questions. I'd be really happy to chat with you a little bit more. Okay, take care.